I was reading this story this morning in the Daily Telegraph from Sydney, Australia. Just a little thing someone sent me. I clicked on the link and I started reading it, and it's like so many things in the world today. It starts off kind of normal and kind of reasonable, and then like 2 or 3 paragraphs in, you realize the entire planet is bananas and there's nowhere to escape to. Under a proposal from the powerful state government Stay Safe Committee, and by the way, there's another Orwellian term, that's like the net neutrality thing, the powerful state government Stay Safe Committee. Under a proposal, cyclists would have their own green traffic signals to get a head start over vehicles. So like you're sitting at the traffic lights and the green light, the cyclists would have a separate green light so they'd get to go ahead first. Similar to lights currently in use for government buses. Other plans to protect cyclists include putting airbags on the outside of cars to reduce the I can't read this. I can't read this with a straight face, and I am amazed that a sentient human being anywhere in the developed world could type this with a straight face. Other plans to protect cyclists include putting airbags on the outside of cars to reduce the severity of collisions with cyclists. General Motors cannot make a vehicle at a price anybody is prepared to pay for it at the moment. They lose money on every vehicle. And now a first world government, but undoubtedly only the first to join this necessary crusade, is proposing that we should put airbags on the outside of cars. Airbags on the outside of cars. And this gets back to the whole net neutrality, by the way. This is nothing to do with who you elect. You can go into the polling booth on a Tuesday morning in November and vote for the small government guy, and then on the Wednesday morning after, some guy in some regulatory agency you've never heard of will propose a regulation requiring vehicles to have airbags on the outside. And there is literally no end to this. And this is what the FCC is about. The FCC was started in 1934. 1934. It's a Roosevelt-era thing. We didn't have all this alphabet soup before then. The alphabet soup, which now runs America, where you take any combination of three-letter combination, and it's the name of an agency. And ones beginning with F are generally the worst because they're the federal ones. So you got federal regulation of bake sales. Now we got federal regulation of apps. Nobody votes for these things. 3 people decided to regulate the apps for 300 million people. Who are these people? There's a guy called Julius Genachowski. Genachowski. I don't know. He was nominated. Nobody's heard of any of these guys until they announced that the Internet, one of the last things still functioning in the United States of America, was now had to be federally regulated. Julius Genachowski is the chair of the Federal Communications Commission appointed by President Obama. Mignon Clyburn, I hope I'm pronouncing that correctly. What an attractive name. Sounds like a steak. Mignon Clyburn was also appointed by President Obama, and Meredith Atwell Baker, also appointed by President Obama. These 3 people nobody's ever heard of just decided that they are going to federally regulate the Internet. A court told them, a court said you don't have the power to regulate the Internet. More than 300 congressmen told them, don't do this, don't regulate the Internet. 3 people you've never heard of just decided to regulate the Internet, just like that. Now, you can't go anywhere and vote these people out. What polling booth do you go to vote out Meredith Atwell Baker? You can't. She's just one of those people nobody's ever heard of, sitting in a room in some building in Washington or in your local state capital, who suddenly passes a regulation that transforms your life and imposes huge costs on the U.S. economy. Something like 10% of GDP now is eaten up by the cost of federal regulation alone. And yet they still cannot stop regulating. I am in favor, by the way, of abolishing the FCC. The FCC was set up to regulate Marbell and Western Union in 1934. Now look around you. Do you think Marbell and Western Union are a big problem today? No. So why do we still have the FCC? Because once you set up a bureaucracy to deal with a certain problem, even if the problem goes away, the bureaucracy remains, and you will have that for all time. So because they can't regulate Ma Bell and Western Union anymore, because the telegram industry, the bottom has dropped out of the whole telegram industry, so like telegram regulation isn't so cool for this useless bureaucracy, they've decided to move on and regulate the internet. And that is the problem, and that is what we are going to be dealing with in the hours ahead. We'll talk about that. 1-800-282-2882. Mark Steyn in for Rush. We're also going to be talking about this new census, which has some very interesting developments in actually entirely predictable developments, which is that the big states, the states that have the kind of governments who think that regulating apps is a great idea, they're continuing to lose population, and population is going to some of the less onerously burdened states. So we're going to get into some census discussion in the years ahead. But I would like to know why we still have an FCC, and why don't we just, instead of federally regulating the internet, why don't we federally regulate the FCC out of existence? That would do more good for the United States of America in the years ahead.